Well, thank you, Michael, for inviting me today. It is an honor to get to speak and be in this group. One of the earlier speakers talked about buy-in and making sure that you had everybody on the same page. Early in my administration, in order to determine what citizens wanted and to make sure we were headed in the right track, I formed a visioning committee. And the visioning committee was a nonpartisan group from folks all over our city, from every region and of all ages, to say, what do you like about Gallatin? What do you want Gallatin to be? What direction should we be heading in? And we spent several months honing those ideas. Once we had our ideas down, we took it to the next step, and we hired a very professional organization to do our comprehensive land use plan. And that organization took our concepts and made them concrete. They created the text. They created the maps. They looked at our city and said, those ideas will work in this section of your town, or those ideas will work over here in another section. And it took us about 9 to 12 months, and we were able to lay out a plan, and we now have a roadmap of what we would like Gallatin to look like. So by following that process, we've gotten our community engaged in what we want to be happening, and we've set our priorities. Now, one of the things we found out as we went through that process was our citizens were interested in mass transit. We didn't have the money for rail, and rail isn't coming to the Northeast Corridor yet. So we were able to work with RTA, and Hendersonville and Gallatin partnered, and we have an express bus that now runs from Gallatin into Hendersonville, and I think we have one of the highest riderships of any of the bus service in the Middle Tennessee area, which demonstrates to us that our folks will ride mass transit, and we're getting them used to that idea. So when we can get rail, we'll be ready to take that next step. But one of the things that we've also done while we have express bus service going on is in our comprehensive land use plan, we started looking at where our stations needed to be, and we've designated those stations in our development maps. And we changed some of our zoning classifications. And I have two of my planners here, by the way, from Gallatin, and they were instrumental in this process. I believe Mr. Jim Savoda and Catherine Schock are here, and I just want to publicly thank them for all their input and hard work. One of the designations that we came up with is an emerging walkable community. And it talks about offering a little higher density to developers who like higher density because they can sell more houses in return for design guidelines, in return for green space, in return for the ability to leave your car parked at home and walk to a train station and pick up a train and have mass transit. So we are trying to promote those ideas by using incentives to the building community, and we've just now completed that process, and the developers are very interested in it. So I'm hoping when the economy turns around that we'll see them pick up on that even more. But one of the other things that we've been looking at is this concept of transit-oriented development. And I know the University of Knoxville and University of Tennessee in Knoxville and Vanderbilt just did a presentation for all of us, and they looked at this issue about trying to take a train station and cluster retail development around it. The Dunkin' Donuts that you were talking about, a grocery store, a drugstore, maybe a dry cleaner. So all of a sudden that mass transit becomes attractive. I can drive in the morning and maybe there's a McDonald's and I'm going to get my biscuit and I'm going to get my cup of coffee and I'm going to leave my dry cleaning and I'm going to go in. I'm going to ride the train in. And when I come home at night, I might stop at the grocery store and pick up dinner, and I might go to the bank and cash a check, and then I'm going to get in my car, or if I'm an emerging walkable community, I can walk home. So we're trying to be a little innovative, to get outside the box, knowing that it's still several years away, but trying to lay that foundation and that framework for how we want it to develop. You know, one of the things I think that all of us have to do, and I'm going to go back to the visioning committee and to what the gentleman from Colorado said, because it always resonates with me. It is important for us to work in a bipartisan fashion. If we cannot reach across the aisle to one another, knowing that we all live in those communities, then the very things that have divided us for years will continue to divide us in the future. Zoning and roads and mass transit, those are not partisan issues, and we need to put our partisanship aside and work together, and I think we can accomplish great things, and I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in Middle Tennessee in the next 5 to 10 years, because I think we're just going to evolve into something that most of us can't really even imagine. So thanks for having me.